Like, even though this is a person that is willing to sink me to save himself, I just couldn't do it.
In hindsight, would you do it differently?
No.
You wouldn't do it differently?
In hindsight, what I would do differently is I wouldn't have been involved with him at all.
Facts. I get that,
That's
right?
it.
But let's just say hypothetically, your hindsight can only go back to that moment after you got arrested, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it any differently.
No.
Why? Do you think that it's cultural though? Do you think like it's something that is embedded in us based off of how we were conditioned to believe or conditioned to operate in those situations, like no snitching, all of that other type of stuff? Do you think it's that, or do you just it's purely based off of your own conviction and how it is that you operate from your own personal perspective?
I feel like when people have the conversations about snitching and not snitching, I feel like that's based off of society, that's based off of the culture, like that conversation itself and how it goes. But when you get in that room and those people have your life dangling, you're not thinking about, how people gonna feel about me if I tell or if I don't tell. You ain't thinking about, if I don't do this, I'm going to prison and people gonna judge me, or, I'm gonna keep the code so I can have respect. You ain't thinking about none of that. Like, you don't give a damn how people see you. People aren't a thought when you get in that room. If you tell, it ain't got nothing to do with the fact of who gonna judge you, who you thinking about your life in that moment. So when it comes to when people snitch or you don't snitch, it's based off of the person, because you do not know until you get into that room, because you don't think about nobody. When I was in there and those officers came at me with that, I didn't think about no street cred. I didn't think about, somebody gonna harm me if I tell. Nobody was a thought in that room but me and how I felt. So I think when it comes to the no stitching and no snitching in the code, the conversations are a cultural piece. But when you get in that room, that's between you and what you want. So
okay. So you get bonded out, and then what's the process after that?
So I'm bonded out, I'm free. I'm fighting my case from the streets. At first they didn't have no offer for me, like no offer. Every time I went to court, they just kept prolonging it. And I'm like, what's the offer? No offer. And like when they first came to me, the offer was 7 years, mandatory. And I was like, couldn't sign for it. And I was like, I just can't do it. I'm like, no, like
You a tough one.
I was like, no.
You a tough one. Like, you wasn't afraid or none of that?
Of course, I was afraid. Like, I was afraid of what could possibly happen to me. Like, I had lost so much weight. I was so stressed out. Like, I had too much pride to talk to people and like let them know what I was going through. So like I was walking around with the world on my shoulders.
And how old are you at this point?
I'm 19 at this point.
19-year-old girl.
But it's just like, I can't just sign I can't just sign my life away. Like, once again, I feel like it ain't have nothing to do with me. Like, I did not traffic cocaine. I did not sell it. I don't know how to weigh it. I don't know how to cook it. I don't know how to do anything. So I could not see myself signing away 7 years of my life. And, so, still fighting my case. And then I ended up getting into a fight. I went to jail, and you can't be home on 2 bonds. So when I went to jail for that fight, you
got into a fight separately from that
on the streets.
Okay, all right, and so you got arrested for that fight. Okay, go ahead. I'm with you.
So after I got arrested and I went to the county jail, you can't bond out on 2 bonds. It's called Parker versus State. So if you bond out on a charge and you get in some more trouble and go back to jail, you're gonna sit there until one of those cases is done. You're going to sit there. You can't bond out on 2. So I had to sit, and I was so angry.
How long did you have to sit for?
I ended up sitting in the county for about 10 months before I went to prison. 10 months ain't nothing.
Well, it ain't nothing in hindsight. Listen, 10 hours for me is, I'm not a thug at all. Like, I'm not a tough guy. I don't pretend to be a tough guy. I'm not interested in being a tough guy. I'm not even going to sit here and cap. I am not built for jail. I'm not built for none of it. You know what I'm saying? So it's different for me. 10 hours, 10 days, all of that. But for you in hindsight, 10 months ain't nothing, because how long did you do?
I did 8.5 years. I was sentenced to 120 months.
What is that, 10 years?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And what was crazy is, so I went to jail. I couldn't bond out, so I got to sit there, right? And I ended up going to trial.
So wait. The best offer that they gave you was
7 years.
They never came back with anything different than that.
And it was 7 years mandatory. I even tried to get them to give me some probation. I would have signed for probation. If they would have offered me probation, I would have signed for it. But they was like, nah, you going to prison. They will not give
Why
me
were they?
anything
Why were they
less.
so stiff? Like, was the offer conditional based off of like additional things that you had to do, like testify or anything like that, or was it just like you plead guilty, you gonna do 7?
Yes. So when it comes to the state giving you an offer, you either sign the offer or you go to trial. There's no, those are the only two options.
They don't come back and redo the offer or none of that.
They can redo the offer. Like you can have your attorney go back and forth. Like y'all can try to like battle and like whatever type of negotiating they do on the golf course or whatever it is they do. But you can go back and give them an offer like, okay, well you said 7 years. What about 5? Or you said 7 years. What about 8 years on probation? So you can try to go back and forth with the state. And they can change their offer. They can do whatever they want to do with their offer, but they would not change it.
So you knew you was gonna sit down though. You knew you was going away though.
No,
You didn't believe you was going away.
no, I did not believe I was going to prison.
Even after they gave you a 7-year offer. What were you thinking? Like what was going through your mind at the time?
I
Because
was
obviously
very-
you stressed out.
I was very stressed out because I knew, especially after having that conversation with the head of the task force, and how he was like, "Oh, we know you don't have anything to do with it," and then in the next breath you tell me that you're gonna put me on the ship and sink me with him. So I was stressed out because I knew there was no guarantee of where my life was gonna go. But it just, I was very much rooted in the fact that I am not guilty. I am not signing for 7 years. So I took them to trial. Like every time my attorney was like, they want to, we going to trial. Like
What did you have a attorney that y'all hired yourself, or did you have like
a public defender.
Public defender.
I had a public defender.
What do you think about public defenders?
I feel like public defenders, my public defender is the reason why I went to prison. Yeah.
You don't think that your public defender did the best job that they could do on your behalf?
In the beginning, yes. So I ended up going to trial. I picked my jury. I ended up going to trial. My trial was 2 days. So, they called
That's
their
it?
witnesses. Yep, 2 days.
Jesus.
Ain't kill nobody. Okay.
I don't know what the process is, so I'm learning, and that's why I don't come with pre-planned questions because,
2 days is, that's people have longer trials depending on the type of crime they have. So if you have a grand theft or larceny charge and you stole from a corporation, of course you got the CEO who probably gonna come testify, the people who you worked with. So the more people that are involved in your case, normally the longer it takes, because you have to give depositions for each and every one of those witnesses. You have to call them to testify. Certain people are only available